Aloha and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be covering, this is part 3 of my comic collection video where I go through every issue I own, period. And we were covering Thor in the first part here. Sorry about the lighting, it's not as good as the last 2 videos, but it is what it is. I have to deal with what I have. And this is the time I had to do it. This video was originally going to come out a little earlier, about a day earlier, but timing got the best of me, and it's coming out. It's going to come out when it comes out, and it won't be, the lighting won't be as good as I intended, but that's okay. Part 3 is Miscellaneous. So part 1, if you haven't checked it out, definitely click one of the cards that has been appearing or has just appeared in the top left and or top right. We covered Thor in the second episode. We covered Captain America and Daredevil, and in this third one we'll cover quite a few series, miscellaneous new and old Marvel comics. So here we go. We got X-Men Legends #1. I think that's all we'll be able to cover, miscellaneous Marvel comics for now. We might be able to go into Image though, who knows, we'll see. Marvel X-Men Legends #1. A very cool cover there, big fan of that. This is kind of modeled after the Jim Lee kind of era of X-Men, if I remember correctly, and this first and second issue are part of the same story arc. This started in May, I believe. February, March, yeah. Started in February of this year, and it's quite a cool series. You know, if you're not feeling the modern Hickman books, but you're looking for a X-Men book that's being published in the modern day, then definitely check this series out. It's a lot of fun, and every few issues, every arc they only last a few issues each so far, covers a different era of X-Men. So in this case, like I said, it's Jim Lee's X-Men, I'm thinking. And then the issues 3 and 4, which I have as well, just not here. You'll see those later on. Wait, do I have? No, 3's right here. Jeez, gonna get things out of order. I have a whole nother. I gotta go through and organize things better. But X-Men Legends #3, as you can see here, this starts. This centers around X Factor. So that's quite cool, and issue 4 does as well. I'm pretty sure issue 4 caps off the X Factor arc, so that's definitely cool. And I didn't like this arc I didn't like this arc as much as the first one, I don't think, but they were both quite good, neck and neck in terms of quality. Both quite good, yeah. We got Shang-Chi issue 1. I showed this off a while back, and I actually forgot this series was going. I got to pick up the other issues. It's on, what is it, like the 5th issue now, something like that. 4th issue, something like that. So I got to pick up the other issues. But I pretty enjoyed issue 1. Pretty much enjoyed issue 1. It was good for what it was, and definitely kind of a good start. It doesn't hold your hand, but I kind of like that. They kind of throw you right in the nitty-gritty of things. And if you never read anything of Shang-Chi like I had previous to this, you'll still, be able to kind of catch up with what's going on, yet it doesn't really hold your hand, which I like. Non-Stop Spider-Man, I can't recommend, man. I covered this in its own. I covered a lot of these here, all of these so far in their own video that I've showed, comics I've showed off so far. But Non-Stop Spider-Man, I really was disappointed with. I was excited to read the first issue. It was announced like a year before it eventually came out. It was delayed multiple times, and yeah, for a series that's non-stop, it actually stopped quite a few times because it was delayed. And there was also another hiccup. I forget if it was with issue 3, where issue 3 was late, or if issue 4 was late, something like that. But I quit after issue 2. It's not good. It had promise, and its artistry wasn't too bad, but ultimately it just, I don't know, its story didn't mesh with the visuals. The visuals were definitely fine for what they were, but the story was nothing special, and the characterizations were annoying at times by, quite a bit. Non-Stop Spider-Man issue 2 really was where I drew the line. A cool cover for sure, definitely, but it's just that story I couldn't get to grips with, and it was very whatever the writing team was very fond of throwing in kind of buzzwords and lingo, modern millennial lingo that really didn't sit with me and made an already kind of confusing and messy story even harder to follow and kind of grating. Alien has been enjoyable so far. It started out a little weak, but it definitely has picked up. It's not fantastic, but it's about the quality. If you're a fan of the later Alien movies, your Alien absolute relation. No. If you're a fan of Alien Resurrection and the Promethean movies, and what is it? Promethean? What's it called? Oh, those later movies. If you're a fan of any of the Alien movies after Alien 3, and you think that that quality is okay, you're interested in kind of the alien lore or xenomorph lore, then, you know, this series definitely might be for you. But if you're not okay with that, if you're more a fan of kind of the more back to basic story that the early Alien movies had, I can't really say I'd recommend this, or that this would be something up your alley. It could be. As far as I know, I haven't read the Dark Horse Alien series, which this series was originally under Dark Horse. Marvel bought out Fox, so it has the rights now, and is producing their own Alien series. The Dark Horse series supposedly is much different and for a totally different fan base. What I can say though is that this would be for the fan base of people that are interested in the alien world outside of the first few films. Again, they're for the people that are, dang it, put it in the wrong spot. For the people that are interested in kind of the background lore of the Alien universe. And if you're into that, and into some fun kind of cheesy action, then it's a pretty decent series for sure. But it's not fantastic, and definitely lacks a lot of the heart that, you know, that makes the best Alien material stand out, right? The franchise is all over the place in my personal opinion, and I think that what really separates the passable Alien content from the real top tier best stuff in the franchise is how much it focuses on the human side or the world building. If it focuses too much on the world building, I feel like at times it can take away from the human experience of it, and that's kind of what this series is about. So although I would prefer if it was closer to the first two movies, I would prefer if it was more focused on the human experience and had more relatable characters that kind of moved me emotionally. You know, I don't have any connection to any of the people in this, and, you know, their deaths don't really matter. Ultimately, it's still a fun enough series for what it is, and does enough right in terms of building out the world that I enjoy it as an Alien fan. Here we're getting into the Marvel kind of reprint era here, and eventually kind of this will fade into the miscellaneous, actually old issues, Marvel issues I have. But here they're kind of old issues, kind of not, but I put them in the same area. So here are reprints I have. I showed this off and talked about it in another polls and pickups. Hopefully I'll put a card on the top right, but this is the first appearance of the Swordsman, and this is part of, right? Yeah. And I believe the next issue after this, this is issue 19, I think, of the Avengers. I'll hopefully put something on screen to make sure and show you guys if that's true. But I also pretty sure that issue 20 after this continues the story of the Swordsman, and, you know, he's trying to join the Avengers, and it's that whole plot line, how the Swordsman ties into the past of various heroes, why he wants to join the Avengers, and what his scheme is. Pretty decent issue for what it is. Moving on, here we have another True Believers reprint. This was let me pull trying to pull it out here. This was a pretty fun story for what it is, focusing a lot on the mythological side of the Black Panther and his whole world colliding with the world of, you know, the Avengers. And this is later on. This is issue, like, what is it, in the hundreds, somewhere around there, 200, something like that. So it's quite a bit farther. We jump forward quite a bit in time in the Avengers timeline. So we have a lot of the more recognizable characters in the forefront, and along with that, you know, it's great to see more elements of Black Panther's world kind of collide with, you know, the Avengers world. So yeah, pretty decent issue for what it is. Better than the Swordsman issue, in my opinion. I enjoyed it, definitely. What I didn't enjoy nearly as much was the giant-sized Avengers issue. What is this? See, it doesn't say. That's what I'm always bummed out about. But here's a little ad on the back. I'll put something on screen here, hopefully now, telling you what issue this is. I forget if it was Giant-Sized Avengers number 7. Might be. Anyways, but this, as you can see, features the wedding, the union of Vision and Scarlet Witch. And it's fun for what it is, I guess. It's the one of my least favorite, probably the least favorite, my least favorite Avengers issue I've read so far. It's not bad for what it is. It's just kind of convoluted, and there's another wedding that goes on here, as you can see, but it's a lot of characters I'm not fully aware of, a lot of villains that pop up that don't really need to, they don't do much, and a lot of kind of small battles and quarrels that don't amount to much. Ultimately, it's about the wedding, and it's all the things surrounding that that are happening that may stop the wedding from happening. But it's just not really a very dynamic story, and feels a bit clunky, and as if they were kind of trying to fill time, fill space, and the things they fill the space with aren't bad, but a lot of it also is things that are very kind of lore heavy in the Avengers world. So if you're not big on Avengers lore, or you kind of have issues with the way pacing is in some issues from this era, you're not going to like this. If you're a big fan of Marvel lore, though, and a big fan of Scarlet Witch and Vision, then you could definitely might get something out of it, and you definitely get a lot of bang for your buck, right? Dollar reprints are cheap enough and good values as it is, let alone that this is a giant-sized issue that's like double the size of a normal issue. So for $1, you're getting like, quite a bit of content. So if you're interested in Marvel lore and learning about Vision, Scarlet Witch, and so on, again, not a bad purchase, but personally for me, it's just it's not exactly what I was looking for. And here we have, I had issue 1. Where was issue? Gonna be out of order. What is it? Issue 3? I don't know. Some of this stuff I gotta sort through it in its own series and add in a lot of the issues that aren't in the long box here. But anyways, here's issue 2 of Justice. I enjoyed covering this for you guys, and if you want to hear me cover more Justice, definitely tell me. It's not a great series. You follow David Bowie from an alternative universe, kind of a Terminator type character that has to find his way back to his own dimension and stop various interdimensional beings from causing mayhem on Earth. Along with, there's also a secret organization that's trying to capture him and use him for some reason. I forget if they're trying to use him as a weapon. I'm not exactly sure, but something like that. Some evil organization that's trying to capture David Bowie here. And although it's not a fantastic series, it's not even a great series, I got these for real cheap. And for real cheap, I definitely recommend it. It's cheesy, it's funny, it's action-packed. And although it's not highbrow, or it's highbrow? Yeah, it's not highbrow art. It's not fantastic. It's not going to move you. And at times it can be a bit slow. Ultimately, it's kind of a fun, almost like watching a B-rated action movie. And for that, these are definitely worth it for a few bucks. Past that, though, I'd say that there's quite a few series, that tick those boxes. There's quite a few bigger series from Marvel or from, DC and so on, indie books and such from this time period that fill out, that do a lot more than Justice does. There's a lot of other books that are funnier. There's a lot of books that have more action-packed or have better futuristic plots. But for what it is, Justice is worth it if you're into these kind of books and you find it for cheap. So that's what happened to me. That's the criteria that I fall into. Therefore, I'm enjoying the series, slowly picking them up. I definitely need to read more of these and pick more of them up. But sadly, my comic shop has run dry on issues as of now. But we'll see where things go from there. Issue 3 is when this series went. Issue 1 was good. Issue 2 is better. Issue 3 is when it's peaked. And so far, I don't think I read past that. I own 1 or 2 issues past this, so we'll see. I know issue 1 is in the box for some reason, but issue 3 here has quite a cool cover, and yeah, things definitely progress quite a bit. There's some love interests that get involved, and it's the whole fish out of water scenario. David Bowie is since he's from an alternative dimension, he has all the kind of cliches that you would see with kind of like, the Terminator or whatever, where he doesn't understand modern day sensibilities or in his instance, it's the past. But, and he starts to fall in love, or a girl starts to fall in love with him, and, he starts to feel more human, that kind of thing. And here we have issue 4 here. Haven't read issue 4 yet. I really should. Pretty sure I haven't. Yeah. Cool once again, that I got that. Nice cover there. And this is all part of the New Universe line, which was Marvel's brief. I definitely covered this in a video in the past, so definitely check those out. But before we move on to Cloak and Dagger here, which you'll see, a very good issue here. Before we move on to that, Justice was part of the New Universe line, which was a array of comics that started in, I believe it was 1986, and it was basically Marvel's attempt to give new writers and up-and-coming artists a chance to spread their wings without possibly harming the success or potential of a more grounded series. The Marvel's established series, they didn't want to necessarily have, some young upstart, some young kid be working on it, but they still wanted to hire these people with potential. So they, used their resources and those kind of writers, up-and-coming writers and things like that, to kind of spread their wings, as I was saying, with these New Universe books. And this New Universe was also meant to be more grounded than the normal Marvel universe, and was supposed to be very interconnected. Ultimately, the interconnected aspect of it was too much to manage, as far as I remember hearing. Therefore, that started to drop off. And overall, many of the series, you can see the New Universe heading up there. Trade dress, New Universe trade dress that all of these series had for a while. But eventually, the trade dress started changing. They started trying to remarket these various series. They started killing off and ending a lot of the New Universe line of books that weren't as successful. The interconnectedness of them all started to fade away because it's too difficult to manage, having a whole array of books be as interconnected as they planned on having them be. They were supposed to have it, I think it was where every day that goes by in the comic, something would happen in another book, something like that. Yeah, something like that, where it's like they're like lined up on a timeline. Like normally Marvel books, famously so, especially in the 60s, had it where events in one book would take place in another, where like Spider-Man, for example, was on vacation early on in some 60s book. I don't remember, but the example that kind of helped bring stronger continuity into comics was what Marvel did in the early 60s, or started doing in the early 60s, which was have things where the books would kind of bleed over into one another. So for an example is that Spider-Man was on vacation, and therefore because of that, he couldn't be fighting in a fight that was going on somewhere else in a different book, or he missed an event that happened in another book. But normally they weren't, that was about the extent of things. For the new Universe line, they wanted every single issue to have some kind of interconnected tie to one another. And that's one thing if it's a handful of books, but there was quite a few New Universe series they started, and they started them all at once. So really it was kind of an oversaturation of an idea that already was hard to execute to begin with, that didn't have that good of writers on it to begin with, and ultimately it all kind of fell apart. But Justice was one of the most successful of those lines, and that's probably why it was so a lot easier for me to find than other New Universe books, which I haven't picked up any yet, other than Justice. Here's Cloak and Dagger here. Cloak and Dagger is one of those series that definitely seemed like it was going to be bigger than what it ended up being. We got a TV show of it a while back, as far as I remember, but I still think that there's potential for it to be something more, get a modern series that really takes off. I think there's still potential for it to possibly be in the MCU and be something bigger than what it currently is now. But no matter what, we still have the original comics, and the original series volumes are still quite good. Issue 5 is where I started in this volume. This is the second volume, as far as I'm aware, a second series that went on. And this went on for was it 12 issues, 15 issues, something like that? So not too long. And issue 5 is where I started here. And although I started, halfway through, a little less than halfway through the series, I was still able to pick up what was going on, and more than just pick up what was going on, no, I got invested in what was going on. Cloak and Dagger follows both Cloak and Dagger, and they both are basically, how do you put it, lab rats, side effects of a drug experiment gone wrong, and they both have various powers that involve, how would you put it, manipulating light and manipulating the material world in dark or light ways. So Cloak is able to open his cloak and summon dark creatures to come out of his cape and devour people. He's able to throw people into his darkness, a void that basically looks in the heart of man's soul, and is able to show them themselves the evil that they truly are. He's able to create dark entities and so on. And Dagger, on the opposite end, is able to create beams of light. She's able to show the good in people. She's able to, things of that nature. So I think she might be able to heal people. There's a few other things like that. And these two conflicting characters being opposites is really what works so well. They're written to have such a good dichotomy, and they bounce off of each other so well because of how well they were written. But on top of that, the fact that their powers and their archetypes are so different and contrasted to one another kind of makes their friendship all the more strange, but all the more alluring at the same time. And because of that, I think the series is quite an interesting one to follow, simply because of that, let alone the fact that the artistry is quite good. The environments are set in a gritty, kind of almost Daredevil-esque, crime-filled city, and the whole theme surrounding drug abuse, human trafficking and abuse, period, and having these two characters both being symbolic of good and evil, kind of bring about the good and snuff out the evil in a city shrouded in darkness, I think is just such a cool plot. It's a cool world, a cool plot. Great cast here of two unique and very contrasting heroes that both work together to save a city that's been long since forgotten, a city that has long since fallen to evil. And I think that's beautiful, and it was very well executed. I just want to read more of it. Each of these issues I read, I quite enjoyed, and it still has some of that 80s cheesy charm to it. And as you can see here, you can see why, right? Being eaten by sharks. And sadly, it didn't go on for, as I was talking about, it only went on for like 12 to 15 issues, this volume. But there's the first volume, which went on for like 4 or 5 issues. And then there's also, I believe it was after this. This was like 86, I think, was when this was going on. 86, whatever. If it went on for 12 issues or 15 issues, then that's either a year or like a year and a quarter. So anywhere from like 86 to like 87, somewhere around there. Anyways, after this, though, they had a series where Cloak and Dagger like crossed over with the X-Men. So there's also that one to look out for, and that had quite a few issues, if I remember correctly, like 20 or more issues. So, which isn't a ton, I guess, for the time, but in comparison to the other two series, it's relatively long. So there's enough material to definitely go through, and of the original first few Cloak and Dagger volumes, and of course there's a lot more after that. But ultimately, I still think that there's potential. I still think that there's room for them in the Marvel universe today. But who knows, right? Again, even if they're brought back, even if they're not, we still have those original issues, and those original issues are quite good from what I've read, as you heard, and you definitely should check them out. Here's Dakota North Investigations. Dakota North Investigations is a kind of attempt at a more lighthearted Black Widow, a more kind of, I don't want to say whimsical, but more, how would I put that, James Bond kind of, a female James Bond kind of character, almost like, I forget her name, I'm going to put it on screen now, but almost like whoever I'm putting on screen now. And you'll know her. She's been in various things in terms of modern media involving Marvel. And Dakota North is similar to that she has a younger brother and is a spy. And her world surrounds espionage. Her world surrounds traveling from various locations: New York, Paris, Rome, Tokyo, and sadly, only across 5 issues, she has to basically take down she has to solve various crimes, so to speak, and ends up figuring out that it's all tied into one big organization that kidnaps her brother and is trying to hold him for ransom. So it's a interesting story that, although it's short-lived and isn't amazing, it has good enough art and writing to say that for me to say that it's worth checking out, in my opinion. It's charming, it's fun, it's lighthearted, and again, it's like a lighter-hearted version of kind of like a Black Widow story. And since it's so short-lived, I'd say I'd recommend it. It's kind of a hidden gem from this era, and although it's not as good as Cloak and Dagger, which is even more of a hidden gem in my opinion, definitely something you should seek out. If Dakota North sounds interesting to you, I think you should pick it up. And I covered that in its own video as well, I believe. Well, not in its own video, but in a Pulls and Pickups for quite a bit. And here we have issue 2. If I haven't, tell me, right? If I haven't, maybe I'm wrong. I'll go back in editing and see. But if not, no matter what, I know I haven't done its own video just on these, but I should. Once I pick up the ones I'm missing. I read through the entire series, but I only own issues 1 through 3, as you can see here. Got to pick up 4 and 5, and it's sad that it never became anything beyond this. I'll probably talk about that more if I do a review of the series, but ultimately it has to do with the writing team, partially the success not being there for the series, but also something happened to the writer, if I remember. A female writer fell out of comics and ended up kind of going on her own and doing her own kind of thing. So I'll probably mention that in a video if I do an upcoming video on that. If you want to see me cover it, definitely tell me. And what is this, 26 minutes in? Yeah, we're gonna cut this short. Next time on my comic collection, we're gonna do Image comics. Hopefully the lighting will be a little bit better in the next video. I thank you very much for watching. If you like this, tell me. If you want to see a video on Dakota North, tell me, because I totally will do that. I'd enjoy doing it, so I probably will. But if you want to see it, definitely tell me so I know.